Hi everyone, welcome back to Behind the Pages with Maggie, breaking barriers one story at a time. Today I bring to you episode 39 with a book titled Rosa that is written by Nikki Giovanni and illustrated by Brian Collier. So I guess by the title of the book, I'm sure many of you would know who I'm talking about. And I am talking about Rosa Parks, who is one of the most important and leading figures in the American civil rights movement. So this book basically tells the inspiring story and the event that shaped American history when 50 years ago, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama city bus. So this picture book is basically a tribute to Mrs. Parks as a celebration of a courageous action and the events that followed. So, without further ado, let's get into the story. Mrs. Parks was having a good day. Mother was getting over that touch of flu and was up this morning for breakfast at the table. Her husband, Raymond Parks, one of the best barbers in the country, had been asked to take on extra work at the Air Force Base. And the first day of December was always special because you could just feel Christmas in the air. Everybody knew the alterations department would soon be very, very busy. Mrs. Parks would laugh each year with the other seamstresses and say that those elves in the North Pole have nothing on us. The women of Montgomery, both young and older, would come in with their fancy holiday dresses that needed adjustments or their Sunday suits and blouses that needed just a touch, a lower or some velvet trimming or something to make the ladies look festive. Rosa Parks was the best seamstress. The needle and thread flew through her hands like the gold spinning from Rumpelstiltskin's loom. And the other seamstresses would tease Rosa Parks and say she used magic. Rosa would laugh. Not magic. Just concentration, she would say. Some days, she would skip lunch to be finished on time. This Thursday, they had gotten a bit ahead of their schedule. "Why don't you go on home, Rosa?" said the supervisor. "I know your mother's feeling poorly, and you might want to look in on her." The supervisor knew Rosa would stay until the work was done, but it was only December 1st. No need to push. Rosa appreciated that. Now she could get home early, and since Raymond would be working late, maybe she would surprise him with a meatloaf, his favorite. "See you in the morning," Rosa waved goodbye and headed for the bus stop. She fiddled in her pocket for the dime so that she would not have to ask for change. When she stepped up to drop her fare in, she was smiling in anticipation of the nice dinner she would make. As was the evil custom, she then got off the bus and went to the back door to enter the bus from the rear. Rosa saw that the section reserved for blacks were full, but she noticed the neutral section, the part of the bus where blacks or whites could sit, had free seats. The left side of the aisle had 2 seats, and on the right side a man was sitting next to the window. Rosa decided to sit next to him. She did not remember his name, but she knew his face. His son, Jimmy, came frequently to the NAACP Youth Council affairs. They exchanged pleas, entries as the bus pulled away from the curb. Rosa settled her sewing bag and her purse near her knees, trying not to crowd Jimmy's father. Men take up more space, she was thinking as she tried to squish her packages closer. The bus made several more stops, and the 2 seats opposite her were filled by blacks. She sat on her side of the aisle, daydreaming about a good day and planning her special meal for her husband. "I said give me those seats," the bus driver bellowed. Mrs. Parks looked up in surprise. The 2 men on the opposite side of the aisle were rising to move into the crowded black section. Jimmy's father muttered, more to himself than anyone else, "Oh, I don't feel like trouble today. I'm gonna move." Mrs. Park stood to let him out, looked at James Blake, the bus driver, and then sat back down. "You better make it easy on yourself," Blake yelled. "Why do you pick on us?" Mrs. Parks asked with that quiet strength of hers. "I'm going to call the police," Blake threatened. "Do what you must," Mrs. Parks quietly replied. She was not frightened. She was not going to give in to that, which was wrong. Some of the white people were saying aloud, "She ought to be arrested and take her off this bus." Some of the black people, recognizing the potential for ugliness, got off the bus. Others stayed on, saying among themselves, "That is the neutral section. She has a right to be there." Mrs. Parks sat. As Mrs. Parks sat waiting for the police to come, she thought of all the brave men and women, boys and girls who stood tall for civil rights. She recited in her mind the 1954 Brown v. Board of Education decision, in which the United States Supreme Court ruled that separate is inherently unequal. She sighed as she realized she was tired. Not tired from work, but tired of putting white people first. Tired of stepping off sidewalks to let white people pass. Tired of eating at separate lunch counters and learning at separate schools. She was tired of colored entrances, colored balconies, colored drinking fountains, and colored taxis. She was tired of getting somewhere first and being waited on last. Tired of separate, and definitely tired of not equal. She thought about her mother and her grandmother and knew they would want her to be strong. She had not sought this moment, but she was ready for it. When the policeman bent down to ask, "Auntie, are you going to move?" all the strength of all the people through all those many years joined in her. Rosa Parks said no. Now, as for today, we're going to stop there. But please come back next week for the next episode where we'll continue on the story of Rosa Parks. Thank you everyone so much for joining with me today in Behind the Pages with Maggie, breaking down barriers one story at a time. Goodbye for now.